Thanks for tuning in to Steel City Football, the 412. Summoning all Steelers fans from around the planet. I summon you to my channel to subscribe, to like, to comment. Summoning all Steelers fans from around the globe. I would do the 412 with this hand, but I broke my finger and I can't, so now I'm walking around like Spock with a bent finger that, who knows, has to be rebroken and fixed, but that's a whole different video. Welcome to Steel City Football! Let's talk about my favorite subject and sports team in the world, the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, I was thinking about the Pittsburgh Steelers today, and you remember in the last election how we kept hearing, don't worry, we're not going to talk about politics. We kept hearing in the last election how this is the most important election of your lifetime. Well, this draft going into 2025, when you really take into consideration where the Pittsburgh Steelers are, this is probably the most important draft in history because we are right on the cliff of falling off for another 10 years or possibly a quarterback away from making it to a deep run into the playoffs. And the one thing that's really bothering me about this entire situation, which I never thought that I would hear in a million years, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers are starting to get looked at as a total joke. People around the league are starting to look at us, fans, insiders, everybody, like the Jets, like the Browns. Whether it's personnel decisions, whether it's courting Aaron Rodgers, whether it's getting blown out in the playoffs and letting up 299 rushing yards, the Pittsburgh Steelers are starting to look like, the perception is that they're starting to look like a joke around the league and to the public. So let's go back to Kenny Pickett and talk about how the Kenny Pickett pick sent the organization back. I'm going to get into it. Let me talk about it. Kenny Pickett was drafted, played for the Steelers in 2022, 2023. It's 2 years. 2024, Russell Wilson. Now we're in 2025. 22, 23, 24. We're going into our fourth year. Think about this. If we don't, let's say the Steelers draft a quarterback and they draft Shedeur Sanders and he doesn't hit and he's not that guy. And trust me, he's not that guy. I've watched him play multiple times on all 22 film. He's not that guy. It's going to take the Steelers between 2 to 3 years to finally give up on him, just like Kenny Pickett. And the Steelers didn't give up on Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett gave up on himself because he didn't want to compete for his job. Spoiled Kenny thought it should be handed to him. And Mike Tomlin, Art Rooney, and Omar Khan told him to take a walk, and that was the best decision that the Steelers have ever made. Because I can't stand that attitude more than anything. I hate that type of attitude. That's not a Steeler attitude. Earn it the hard way, blue collar way. Show up for work, put in the work, and earn it. And the softest man alive, Kenny Pickett, who missed multiple games because of bone bruises, didn't want to earn it. So I'm over him. But getting back to that situation, if the Steelers draft a quarterback, it's going to be 7 to 10 years of mediocre play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not having a franchise quarterback for a decade. For a decade. That's where we're headed. A decade. 10 years. And you know what? We're not even guaranteed to get a franchise quarterback. It's not a guarantee. It's not a lock. If it's that easy, everybody would have a franchise quarterback. But they don't. So who says that it's going to end there? I'm just saying right now, you think even if we drafted Shedeur Sanders and he was that guy, do you think the Steelers are going to go deep into the playoffs? Probably not. They might win a playoff game. They might not even get there. He's going to need time to develop. So automatically, we're going into a 7-year drought. And that's not even a guarantee. Who's to say the drought ever ends anytime soon? Which it doesn't. And now we're starting to become an aging defense. Our studs, our superstars on defense are everything. Our worldly players, TJ Watt, the best defensive pass rusher to ever play in the NFL, he's 30. I don't think he's washed up at all. I think he's got another good 5 to 6, 7 years left in him at a high level. But Cam Hayward, he's towards the end. Minka, he's getting older. So by the time the Steelers find this franchise quarterback with a bunch of studs on defense, now those studs are old. This Kenny Pickett thing really set the organization back. Oh, God. Kenny Pickett single-handedly destroyed the Steelers for, right now, an indefinite amount of time. Missing on Kenny Pickett destroyed the Pittsburgh Steelers. Destroyed the Steelers. I mean, I can't say it anymore. I watch DK Sports all the time. It's one of my favorite shows because they're getting firsthand information from the players, from the locker room. It's a legitimate source of information. And DeJean always says that the fan base, out of all his years of covering the team, this is the angriest he's ever seen the fans. And I fully agree. I get it. They should be angry because it's not that we're losing in style. We're losing and getting blown out of the building where we're a joke. We got defensive players on the field arguing with each other like they do in Pop Warner, putting their hands on their hips, throwing their arms up in the air. Everybody's doing whatever the hell they want. Nobody's on the same page. It's unacceptable. So before, I was thinking about this all day today. Just thinking about the Steelers, thinking about how everything's going wrong. We don't even know where the hell Aaron Rodgers is. I don't even want to talk about him. So I'm thinking about all this. I say, let me sign into Steelers Depot, see if I see any news. And what do I see? What comes up? You know what? I'm going to let the video tell you himself what was said. Let's listen to how the Baltimore Ravens, in the playoffs, were making fun of the Steelers' game plan in the locker room. It just keeps getting worse. Let's listen.
Like, Mike Tomlin cannot enter next season without fundamental changes to the run defense. Never mind the fact that, if we're being honest, I was at that game. I covered that game. I was in the Ravens locker room. The Ravens were like making fun of the Steelers game plan. Like, straight up. The Ravens were making fun of the Steelers game plan, and like, not like to reporters, but like if you heard what they were saying among themselves. The Ravens were kind like as much as we talked about Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks having like this lineup and we're going to just play and we're going to beat you because we're better than you style that won 10, 12 years ago with the Legion of Boom. But now it's like Gus Bradley. We make fun of, like, how do you still, like, now it's like if you just post snap do what you say you're going to do pre snap, if it doesn't change the look, it's almost like you're like, if you're sorry, now I'm like rambling, but if you're an offense and every single week you're playing a team and they show you something and then the ball snapped and they show you something else and you do that for a month and then you play a team like the Steelers and what you see is what you get. It's like swinging a baseball bat with a donut on it and then all of a sudden you get to take the donut off. You're like, wait a second, there's no trickery. It's like, this is what it's going to be. That's what the Steelers defense has become. There's an ideological update Mike Tomlin needs. There's personnel updates they need to stop the run. And on top of it, they don't have a left tackle. So what'd they do? They got a $40 million receiver and no quarterback.
Now you don't have a second round pick. So
Well, I disagree with him with one thing. When you bring in DK Metcalf and George Pickens I hope he's gone during the draft. Time to say goodbye. But when you bring in a DK Metcalf, that encourages quarterbacks to want to play for the Steelers. So I'm not on board what he said about, mocking the Steelers for signing DK Metcalf, saying, it's like having a Ferrari without a garage. I'm not buying that. There's very few quarterbacks on the quarterback market, and signing DK Metcalf just increases your chances of bringing in a good quarterback. So that's a totally different topic. But you heard it. He was in the locker room. He heard the Ravens mocking the Steelers. What you see is what you get. There's no difference. I mean, look what TJ Watt did the first 3 quarters of that playoff game, where he crashed down, tackled Derrick Henry, whether he had the ball or not. There was a space in the field that I could have ran through for a 50-yard touchdown. Never mind Lamar Jackson. And that didn't change. It didn't even change at halftime. It changed like in the middle of the third quarter, towards the end of the third quarter. I mean, at what point do you think to yourself, Coach Tomlin, like, all right, I need to change this. Let's bring a safety down into the box closer to, be in that part of the field when TJ slides down and takes on Derrick Henry to be in that space. Nope, not one adjustment. Lamar just ran wild. And this is the last thing. I already know this, but when it's being confirmed constantly and people are just laughing at the Steelers, and Julian Edelman says the same thing. Those guys have been doing the same thing for 20 years, and I knew when I played them, I'd have 14 catches for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. That he always knew he'd have his best game against the Steelers because he knew exactly what they were doing. Listen, nobody wants Coach Tomlin to be more successful than me. Come on, Coach. Bring in some consultants. Bring in some of these geniuses and these wizards that they have that study all these things and come up with these game plans. Like you have to be like Andy Reid. You got to scheme to get guys open. You got to scheme to get pressure on offenses. And the Steelers aren't doing it. I'm all about lining up and kicking the guy's ass in front of me. I get it. But this is the NFL. You have to scheme that. You have to mix it up. You can't just be a pitcher that throws 90 miles an hour down the middle of the plate. And you might be a great pitcher. But sooner or later, batters adjust. And they're hitting it out of the park. Why is that? It's not because you're bad or not a good athlete. Because you're not mixing it up. I'm going to leave it at this. I did not need to see this today after having all my thoughts to begin with. I swear to you, I'm thinking about the Steelers all day, thinking about, man, we're starting to get talked about like the Browns, the Jets. I'm thinking about what's going wrong. I go to Steelers Depot to see if there's any news, and this is the first thing I see. God! Steel City football. It's time to log off.